Hi Year 4 and welcome back to Lesson 2 in Week 4. In today's lesson we are going to be looking at, can I identify changing state from a gas to a liquid by the process of condensation? So just to begin in today's lesson, we're going to recap over the answers from yesterday's task. So yesterday you carried out an experiment, putting some hand sanitizer onto your hands. So evaporation is a cooling process. As the moisture, so the hand sanitizer, leaves your skin and enters the air cools and makes your hands feel colder. This was after about 15 seconds. Wind speeds up the evaporation process. This is the reason why the wind also makes you cold. Grasping gas. Gas makes up the air we breathe and is one of the three main states of matter. Matter is anything that has weight and volume, such as water. The three main states of matter are solid, liquid and gas. Water can exist in all states of matter. When water is a solid, it's called ice, and when it's a liquid, it's called water, and when it's a gas, it's called water vapour or steam. When water is boiled, it turns into steam. Steam takes up more space than water. This is because when the water is boiled, the atoms of the water move away from each other and fill more space. Steam, along with other gases, is harder to see than a liquid because all the atoms are spread out. Matter is also lighter when it is a gas than when it is a liquid. This is because when the atoms are spread out, fewer atoms can fit a certain amount of space. For example, a glass of steam would weigh less than a glass of water. A glass of ice would also weigh less than a glass of water because, unlike liquids, solids cannot expand freely to fill the space. Volatile volume. When atoms are spaced apart, they take up more space. The amount of space that matter takes up is called volume. When matter is a gas, the atoms are spaced far apart and they take up more space. This is why gas always has a greater volume than the other states of matter, liquid and solid. The atoms in solids and liquids are closer together. Gases like steam are formed when a liquid is heated. For example, when a kettle is turned on, the atoms in the water are heated up. The heat then causes the atoms to move around and become spaced apart. When the atoms in the water get hot enough, they will be moving so fast and they will move away from each other and float off into the air as steam. If you capture the steam and cool it, this will slow the atoms down. This means the atoms will move closer together and become a liquid again. You can do this by carefully holding something cold over a steaming cup of water. The water will condense on the cold object because the cold object will cool the atoms that make up the water. So, all matter turns into a gas when heated. This is called evaporation. However, it will take a higher temperature to turn some types of matter into gas than other types of matter. For example, a metal such as iron would need to be heated about 3,000 degrees Celsius before it would turn into a gas. Water, on the other hand, only needs to be heated to 100 degrees Celsius. Some atoms need higher temperatures than others to turn into gas. This is because some atoms are heavier than others. Heavier atoms need more heat before they can move away from each other. Iron has atoms that are much heavier than the atoms in water. This is why iron needs more heat to turn into a gas. Almighty atmosphere. Most of the gases on Earth are floating around the air that we breathe. This air makes up our atmosphere, which is a layer of gases that surround the globe. The atmosphere is mostly made of two gases, nitrogen and oxygen. The air pushes down on everything on the ground. It pushes us from every direction. This weight pressing down on us is known as atmospheric pressure because it is coming from the Earth's atmosphere. The atmospheric pressure is greatest at sea level. This is because at sea level, more air is pushing down on you from above. Atmospheric pressure is weakest at the top of the mountains because there is less air pushing down on you from above. The atoms in the air at the top of the mountains are very far apart because there is less pressure pushing them close together. This means that there's small amounts of oxygen in the air at the top of the mountains. Mountain climbers often experience a type of sickness called altitude sickness when they climb to the top of the mountains. This is because the lack of oxygen can cause their bodies to feel sick and dizzy. Talk to your partner. What do you think this picture is showing? Remember to pause the video whilst you have your discussion. The picture was showing you something called condensation cooling. If water vapour is cooled down, it changes into water. This change is called condensation, so it's moving something from a gas being cooled down into a liquid. Have a look at this glass. On a hot day, the glass has ice in it. What can you see has happened to the glass? Water vapour. What makes the glass have that wet effect on the outside of it? That's because the ice cools the water down. Condensation happens when water gets cold. The molecules become closer together and then join together. Again, if you look at this diagram, you can see how this has happened. So if you look where it says gas, gas has an arrow going towards liquid, so that's called condensation, when something moves from a gas to a liquid by the process of condensation. Your task for today is to write down some examples of where you have seen condensation happening. You might want to write them or even draw them and label them. Also, find out how the water cycle relates to condensation. You might need to do a little bit of research for this one. That's all for today. Remember to upload to Tapestry or send your work through to Year 4 teachers' email. Thank you and keep safe.